My name is Leanne H. Wood. I am 36 years old, and until 3 weeks ago, I believed I was living a life that made sense. I had been married to my husband for 8 years, together for 11. We met when we were younger, optimistic, convinced that love alone could carry us through anything. It turns out love needs honesty to survive, and that part failed long before I realized it. The night everything cracked open was painfully ordinary. We were sitting on the couch watching one of those true crime documentaries about cheating spouses, the kind where betrayal snowballs into something irreversible. He hates those shows. I love them. Ironic, in hindsight. During a commercial break, he muted the television and turned toward me. His expression was strange, unreadable, like he was rehearsing something in his head and missed his cue. "Hey," he said, "random question." "Okay," I replied. "Hypothetically," he continued, emphasizing the word, "if I cheated on you, would you forgive me?" I didn't hesitate. "No." He laughed, but it wasn't his real laugh. It was thin, nervous. The same laugh he used when he once tried to blame a dent in my truck on a shopping cart. "Just like that," he said. "No hesitation?" "Nope," I answered. "Cheating is a deal breaker. You know that." "But what if it was just once?" he pressed. "And I was really sorry." "Still no." There was a pause, not long, but heavy. "Why are you asking me this?" I said. He waved his hand dismissively. "Just the show. Got me thinking about boundaries. You know how these things go." "Our boundary is no cheating," I replied. "That's pretty straightforward." He unmuted the television. Conversation closed. Or so he thought. Here's the thing about being with someone for over a decade. You learn their patterns. You recognize when a question isn't curiosity, but reconnaissance. You know when someone isn't asking out of guilt, but strategy. That night I couldn't sleep. I replayed the conversation over and over. The nervous laugh, the follow-up questions, the way he avoided eye contact just a beat too long. My gut wouldn't quiet. It was loud, insistent, almost panicked. Around 2 a.m, he was dead asleep. He takes melatonin and sleeps like a stone. I did something I had never done in 11 years. I checked his phone. The passcode hadn't changed. 0814, our anniversary. The irony made my stomach twist. I found him in less than 30 seconds. Saved under Gym Buddy. My husband hadn't been to a gym since 2019. The messages went back 4 months. 4 months of lies unfolded on a glowing screen in the dark. Physical meetups, hotel rooms, complaints about me, plans to leave once the house situation was figured out. The most recent message, sent while he was sitting next to me on the couch, made my hands shake. He told the other man about the hypothetical question. "LOL," he wrote. "Guess I know where I stand now." The reply came back quickly. "Maybe that's your sign to finally leave her, babe." My husband responded, "Soon. Just need to sort out the house first." I sat on the bathroom floor for an hour, reading through the wreckage of my marriage. When I finally climbed back into bed, he rolled over and mumbled, "Love you," in his sleep. I stared at the ceiling until sunrise, knowing that by morning, everything would be different. I called in sick to work the next morning. My voice sounded steady when I left the message, which surprised me. Inside, everything felt rearranged, like furniture shoved into new places while I wasn't looking. My husband left the house at 8:30 like nothing had changed. He kissed my forehead, told me he hoped I felt better, and reminded me to take my vitamins. Normal routine, normal tone. A man who had been planning to leave me for months walked out the door like he hadn't already burned our life down. The moment his car disappeared, I sat at the kitchen table and forced myself to breathe. I didn't cry yet. Shock has a way of freezing tears until later. The first thing I did was call a divorce attorney. Just a consultation. Just information. I needed facts to anchor myself to reality. The attorney was blunt. In our state, adultery doesn't carry much weight in asset division. No fault divorce. Feelings don't matter. Documentation does. Screenshot everything, he told me. Dates, times, photos. Save it in more than one place. So I did. I went back into his phone and captured every message, every image I hadn't already looked at. I backed it all up to cloud storage, emailed copies to myself, and put everything on a USB drive I dropped off at my brother's house later that day. I moved carefully, methodically, like I was packing evidence instead of grief. Then I started reading again, slower this time. They met at his company's quarterly retreat in March. He told the other man our marriage was basically over, that I was emotionally unavailable, that I didn't understand him anymore. He said he was only staying until the timing made sense to leave. There were plans. weekend trips disguised as work travel, hotel reservations I now recognized from credit card statements I'd never questioned. And there it was again, threaded through the messages like a cruel joke. The hypothetical question. He hadn't asked me out of remorse. He asked to measure risk, to see whether confession would be forgiven or whether silence was safer. When I said cheating was a deal breaker, he didn't feel guilt. He felt confirmation. Around noon, I stopped reading and sat on the floor of our bedroom. My hands were shaking, not with rage yet, but with disbelief. 11 years collapsed into text bubbles. I didn't confront him. Not yet. Instead, I started packing. Not everything. That would have taken days. Just enough. Clothes for 2 weeks. Shoes. Toiletries. His laptop. The expensive grooming products he insisted on buying. I placed everything neatly in the guest room. Folded. Organized. Calm. The calm scared me more than anger would have. Then I sat down at the kitchen counter and wrote a note. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I reframed. Hypothetically, if you've been cheating on me for 4 months with someone saved as gym buddy in your phone, you may want to call him for a place to stay tonight because hypothetically, you're homeless. Your bags are in the guest room. I'll be at my brother's until you're gone. Sincerely, your emotionally unavailable wife. I read it twice, left it exactly where he'd see it. I packed a bag for myself, grabbed my laptop, and drove to my brother's house. He opened the door, took one look at my face, and handed me a beer without asking a single question. I didn't drink it. I just held it until my hands stopped shaking. My phone started lighting up around 6:15. What is this note? You went through my phone. This is insane. We need to talk. You can't just kick me out of my own house. Leanne, call me. Call? I didn't respond. By the time night settled in, I felt something shift inside me. The part of me that used to explain, soften, negotiate, had gone quiet. For the first time since the hypothetical question, I slept. Not peacefully, but deeply enough to dream of nothing at all. And I knew when I woke up, there was no going back to before. I stayed at my brother's house for 2 nights. During that time, my phone became a siren that never stopped screaming. My husband called 23 times, left voicemails that swung wildly between panic, anger, and disbelief. Texts layered on top of each other so fast they blurred together. At first it was confusion, then outrage, then desperation. I answered once, on the second night, when he threatened to call the police and report me missing. I'm not missing, I said evenly. I'm at my brother's. We need to talk about this, he insisted. This is being blown completely out of proportion. There's nothing to talk about, I replied. I saw everything. It's not what you think. You told another man our marriage was basically over. You slept with him for months. You sent him photos. What exactly am I misunderstanding? There was silence on the line, long enough that I thought he'd hung up. Then he said, Can you just come home so we can discuss this like adults? I'll come home when you're ready to move out. My lawyer will be in touch. His voice cracked. He started crying. I hung up. The next morning, I went back to the house while he was at work. My lawyer had been clear. I couldn't legally force him out, but I could change the environment. I changed the code on the garage keypad, the one he used every day. He still had his house key, but the message was clear. Things were no longer the same. Was it petty? Yes. Did it feel good? Also, yes. That evening, the real circus arrived. His mother called me. This woman had never liked me. She always thought her son had settled by marrying a project manager instead of a doctor or a lawyer. Now she wanted to lecture me about commitment. You don't abandon your spouse over one mistake, she said sharply. With all due respect, I replied, this doesn't involve you. She's my son. He cheated on me for 4 months. She didn't miss a beat. Because you neglected him. You were never emotionally available. What did you expect? I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because the audacity was staggering. I expected my husband not to sleep with someone else, I said. Wild, I know. You're being unreasonable. Marriage takes work. I'm not giving up on my marriage, I told her. I'm letting go of someone who already did. I hung up and blocked her number. The next day, my husband tried a new tactic. He showed up at my office. He walked right into the building and asked the receptionist to page me like nothing had happened. One of my coworkers warned me before I hit the lobby. When I saw him standing there with a coffee and a bag of pastries from my favorite bakery, something in my chest tightened. 15 minutes, he said when he saw me. That's all I'm asking. Against my better judgment, I agreed. We sat in the courtyard outside my building. He spoke first. I ended it with him, he said immediately. It's over. I blocked him. Deleted everything. Good for you. I mean it. I know I messed up. I hurt you. But 8 years, Leanne. You're really going to throw that away. I didn't throw anything away, I said. You did. It was a mistake. 4 months isn't a mistake, I replied. It's a lifestyle choice. He said he was confused, that our marriage felt stale, that he didn't know how to talk to me about it. So instead of talking to your wife, I said quietly, you talk to another man with your clothes off. He flinched. That's not fair. None of this is fair. You asked me a hypothetical question while you were actively cheating. You wanted to know if I'd forgive you so you could decide whether to confess or keep lying. He tried to interrupt. I didn't let him. Your text said, "Guess I know where I stand now," with a laughing emoji. You weren't asking out of guilt. You were asking out of strategy. He had no answer. My lawyer will be sending you papers, I said as I stood. You should get one too. I left him sitting there with the coffee and pastries. I didn't look back. That night, I found out he'd started telling people I was controlling, emotionally abusive, that I drove him into someone else's arms. The narrative was already spinning. His best friend texted me, I can't believe you're doing this to him. He told us everything. I sent one screenshot. A message where my husband described in detail what he and his affair partner did in a hotel room during a work trip. There was no reply after that. Funny how the truth works when it finally enters the room. 2 weeks passed, and instead of calming down, everything got louder. My husband leaned fully into victim mode. He told anyone who would listen that I was emotionally abusive, that I controlled all the finances, that I isolated him from his friends. None of it was true, but lies travel faster when they make the liar look wounded. His mother took the lead. She started posting vague messages on social media about believing victims, about recognizing abuse when you see it. She never used my name, but she didn't have to. Anyone who knew us understood exactly who she was talking about. My own mother called me furious. Not at me, at them. She wanted to drive over to my mother-in-law's house and have words. I talked her out of it. I knew this wasn't going to be handled emotionally. It was going to be handled legally. I filed for divorce first. My lawyer said it mattered, procedurally and optically. The papers were served to my husband at work. According to a mutual acquaintance, he caused a scene in the parking lot, crying, yelling, blaming me for humiliating him. Then came financial discovery. We kept separate personal accounts, but shared household expenses. I thought I knew our finances well. I was wrong. Over the past 4 months, my husband had been quietly moving money. About $8,500 transferred into an account I didn't know existed. The statements told the rest of the story. Hotel rooms, expensive dinners, a weekend casino resort trip he'd told me was a conference. All of it paid for while he was telling me we needed to tighten our budget. My lawyer's response was simple. This helps us. The house situation was harder. The house was in both our names. I put down $65,000 from my inheritance for the down payment, but the mortgage had been joint for 6 years. The cleanest solution, according to my lawyer, was for me to buy him out. The appraisal came back higher than expected. His equity share was around $85,000. Paying that felt like swallowing broken glass. But paying it meant he would leave faster. And at that point, I didn't want revenge. I wanted him gone. We negotiated back and forth for a week. He demanded extra money for emotional distress. My lawyer advised me to agree rather than drag this through court. We settled at $92,000. I signed the paperwork and told myself peace was worth the price. But I wasn't finished listening. I still had access to our shared phone plan. I could see call and text logs without touching his phone. Guess which number showed up 3 times the following week? The same man. He hadn't ended anything. He had just gotten better at hiding it. I forwarded the logs to my lawyer. 2 days later, his lawyer contacted mine. The demand for additional compensation disappeared. Settlement revised back to $85,000. His actual equity. No more, no less. Small victory. I took it. The smear campaign continued, but it was losing momentum. People were starting to notice the cracks, the contradictions, the money trail, the shifting stories. For the first time since this started, I felt something other than shock or anger. I felt control returning. 6 weeks later, it was over. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday morning. Quick, according to my lawyer. No children helped. So did the fact that once the financial truth came out, there wasn't much left to argue about. I kept the house. I refinanced it in my name only. He walked away with his $85,000 in equity. We split our retirement accounts evenly, which hurt more than I expected. About $40,000 gone in a signature. He kept his car. I kept mine. No alimony. His lawyer tried for it, arguing he'd grown accustomed to a certain lifestyle. The judge wasn't interested, especially given the timeline of the affair. The day he came to pick up the rest of his things felt surreal. My brother was there, at my lawyer's suggestion. Witnesses matter. My husband arrived with his mother and a rented truck. She glared at me the entire time, lips pressed thin, like anger alone could rewrite the past. They loaded boxes in silence, no confrontation, no theatrics. As they were finishing, my husband walked over and tried one last time. "I hope you know I really am sorry," he said. "I never meant for any of this to happen." "And yet it did," I replied. "Maybe someday," he continued, "we can at least not hate each other." "I don't hate you," I said honestly. "I just don't trust you, and I don't want you in my life." He looked like he wanted to say more. His mother grabbed his arm and pulled him toward the truck. They drove away, leaving tire marks at the end of the driveway. I stood there and felt nothing. Not relief, not grief, just emptiness. 11 years ended with a moving truck on a quiet weekday afternoon. The aftermath has been strange. I lost some mutual friends, the ones who bought into the abuse narrative without asking questions. I kept the ones who knew me. My family was incredible, my brother especially. He let me crash at his place, helped me change locks, sat with me one night while the weight of everything finally hit and I cried harder than I thought possible. Through mutual connections, I learned what happened next. The man my husband had been seeing was married. 12 years. 2 kids. His wife found out about the affair roughly 2 weeks after I did. Apparently, my husband wasn't the only one. He was one of several. The fantasy collapsed fast, divorce followed. The affair partner moved into an extended stay hotel, paying child support and alimony while his ex-wife kept their home. As for my ex-husband, last I heard he was living in a small apartment with his mother. The $85,000 went faster than he expected. First and last month's rent. A new car after his old one died. Credit card debt I hadn't known about. He's already been asking friends for money. The man he thought he was leaving me for stopped answering his messages once the reality set in. Funny how that works. I'm not going to pretend I'm thriving every day. Some mornings I still reach for the other side of the bed. Sometimes I almost text him when something funny happens before remembering who he chose to be. But I'm okay. I'm learning who I am without him, which is something I haven't done since my 20s. The house feels too big some days. I might get a dog. I might rent out the spare room. I haven't decided. What I do know is this. The night he asked me that hypothetical question, I gave him an honest answer. Cheating was a deal breaker. He had every chance to come clean, to end the affair, to actually fight for our marriage. He chose not to. He wasn't asking for permission to confess. He was checking whether he'd get caught. He did, and now he gets to live with that choice.